This is the 20th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. Had a really good week of shows this week back in studio after the Northern Adventure, and then all of you watching and listening are going to get to watch a lot of smallmouth get caught over the next month. The Elite Series wraps things up with back-to-back stops up north on Champlain and Thousand Islands, and then the BPT kicks off next week out of Messina. It'll be very interesting to see how that event goes down with the Every Fish Counts format, whether the largemouth will play with the lake being off limits and what those parameters are over on the BPT. Jacob Wheeler goes into that final event of the year with a 19-point lead in the Angler of the Year over Alton Jones Jr., I believe, who's coming a heck of an angler in his own right. A couple win under his belt, and you got Drew Gill that's up there in the mix. And then we also just wrapped up the Tackle Warehouse Invitational on Lake St. Clair. Alec Morrison and Jake Lawrence battling it out for that Angler of the Year title. Alec is actually going to be on the show next Monday, a recorded show. I'll be out of town next week. Had a really good discussion with Alec, and kind of a little bit of the same deal as today's guest. We have John Garrett, who is currently second, I believe, in the Rookie of the Year standings, but been around a while, put a lot of time and effort into this thing. It's not just kind of like a shown up out of nowhere. But Alec was talking about a lot of cool things and the groundwork and foundation that he laid to be a 25-year-old guy who won the Rookie of the Year, the Angler of the Year, $150,000 over the course of the season, and a spot in the BPT next year in 2025. But I did mention Jake Lawrence, and kind of in our little pre-tournament meeting, I'll bring John Garrett in now. John, thanks for jumping on BTL.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be on.
Yeah, we were talking before, like Jake Lawrence, you and Jake Lawrence go way back, like no surprise on his, I mean, dude, like historic season for those guys over on the invitationals on MLF. Like any of those top 5 guys should have won Angler of the Year by a mile any other season, and they all just decided to start blasting them in 2024.
Unbelievable. And you talked about Alec and Jake. All these guys have taken big risk in their family life, traditional lifestyle, to put a lot of time on the water, and that it showed this year for sure.
It did. Did Jake kind of grow up around you, or did you get to know him in school? You guys were in school at the same time, or is he a little younger than you?
So Jake is a little older than I am.
Older. Okay.
But so we were in the same junior TBF bass club when we were like 10 years old.
Really?
So we fished a junior bass club together. We were in high school together, and then we fished at Bethel as well. So
that has to be like one of the best junior bass clubs in the history of junior bass clubs. Was there anyone else in there who's making waves in the fishing industry, or just you two?
No, there wasn't. But I'll tell you that that time frame of that TBF, we fished. There was me and Jake and Cole Sands.
Oh my gosh!
There was quite a few guys that are making a living fishing now in the TBF back then. So it's pretty cool to see what that junior bass club has done to a few people's lives.
Do you think without that junior bass club, the stair step and all that, you guys would be doing it, or were you like a true, and was that whole group kind of a true representation of what these organizations were hoping to do when they started this, back in the 2000s?
Yeah, I think it absolutely has if not everything, a big part of it because as we were, 10 to 13 before we got to
Mhm.
high school, so 10 to 13, we were going out with random boat captains at these tournaments from sometimes different parts of the state. We didn't know them. Sometimes their boat didn't run. So we got to meet a lot of different people, go to a lot of different bodies of water. And man, we learned a whole lot. And that's kind of where, my original love for tournament bass fishing came. So that's a big part of it.
So how old were you when you fished your first tournament then? 10, 11?
I was 10. I was 10 years old in the junior bass club. Yeah.
And then you're how old now?
28.
Oh, you're the second oldest rookie besides Milliken, I think.
I'm old. I'm
So
old. I got
you've
some gray
got
hairs getting my sideburn now.
you're 28 with 18 years of tournament experience under your belt.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's insane. Does it feel like it's been that long? I mean, in all honesty, I know we were sitting around the guys in the opens and other professional anglers. It seems like ages ago that you won the bracket and then fished in the class. Like you fished in Jordan Lee's classic, right? Where he blew his motor up and then caught 27 pounds on a mop jig
Yep.
underneath the bridge. And then you guys weighed
Yep.
in the Astro Stadium.
Yep. Yeah. It's 2016, I believe. Yeah. But no, it doesn't. When my career, I guess you could say, started feeling long is when I got into the opens. So, high school and college was just such a blast that just the time flew by. And then I guess I could start feeling the seasons getting longer when I jumped into the opens and until now. So
You were one of those guys in the opens. I'm pulling it up right now. You missed it like by like a point like 4 years in a row, didn't you?
yeah, it was crazy. So I don't want to dive into all of them because we don't have enough time on the show to talk about all of them. Lost a tiebreaker to get in through the Central Opens one year. I tied for like three-way tied for 12th, and in the last tournament on Grand Lake, got dropped to like 14th, lost 2 points, and got bumped out by a point. Finished fourth one year in the very first year they did the overall AOY. They took the top
Yep.
three, I believe. Yeah, and then was one or two spots out pretty much every time before and after those.
Yeah, and then you finished 11th in
Yeah,
2022
20. Yeah.
and missed it by like and in any of those years like did you have fish on that like should have been in the boat that didn't end up in the boat to where then you have to sit for 8 months and go, my God, I have to go through this whole process again and I had it in my hands?
There's a couple of stick out. One was real bad on Grand Lake. The very first year I fished the opens, I was leading. I mean, this is probably back in 2017. I was leading the points after day one of the opens, and I had until 5 o'clock to fish on the second day, and I did not get a bite until like 10 o'clock, and I blew my motor.
Oh
And
no.
I was near the ramp, so I went back to the ramp. They fixed me up. I was on the water at 3 o'clock now. I got 2 hours left to fish, and I lost like a 6 pound retread right by the boat ramp. And if it had weighed 4 pounds, I would have made it that year. But no, there's a couple that definitely stick out in my mind. So
I've had this conversation recently. Doesn't it seem like, regardless of how smooth your year goes, like when it comes down to crunch time, there's always something that happens that tests
yeah,
your mental ability, your skill, and your decision making? And I can't tell you how many guys I've interviewed where it comes down to that one decision or that one fish that's the difference between the make or break. It's like it's meant to be like, oh, yeah, it's been smooth sailing. Watch this.
yeah, every time, whether it's something on your boat, losing a fish, or most time it's on the water instead of off the water. But yeah, there's always something that pops up.
You fished that 2017 Classic, and then you got a lot of experience under your belt in a lot of different tournaments. Looking back on it now, with the year that you're having on the Elite Series, it looks like a solid sponsor portfolio. Things are rolling for you. Are you glad that it happened the way that it did, or do you feel like you were ready for the Elite Series 3-4 years ago?
No, I definitely was not. The I'm glad I am. I'm glad it took me this long to qualify for how I've grown, on and off the water. I would have taken the invite in 2017, maybe when the industry was in a better spot,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe I would be in a better place if I started the Elite Series back then. But definitely have learned more. So, I mean, I've learned so much on the water and off the water about our industry the past couple years. Us fishing together in the opens. You learn a lot of stuff on the water and grow as an angler. So I'm glad it took me, as long as it did, as far as that aspect of it.
I'm curious. I'd like you to dive a little bit more into the off the water of what you learned, because you're one of the few guys who's had the opportunity to go through that dynamic sponsorship. You got the wrap boat, the truck, you got to fish the opens, be in the classic, and kind of go through what it's like to be a professional angler, which the bracket winner gets to do every single year. But just kind of talk about the off the water maturity and some of the biggest things you've learned over the past 6 years in that.
Yeah. So I mean, as you know, and many people listening knows, like we can't do what we do without good partnerships with companies. And you know, back when I started this, and I think a lot of people think this too, it's like you walk around with your hand out saying, "What could you do for me?" But in reality, you have to learn what you could do to help grow companies. And it's easy to say that, but it takes a lot of time to actually learn it and put it into place and,
Mhm.
and do those things. So, I mean, that took a lot of time to learn. And also, you know, you can make yourself a better angler. I mean, we've talked about all the guys that have spent so much time on the water. If you don't get to put those hours on the water, there's still things you could do, as far as map study, you know, watch podcasts, Bass Talk Live, listen to what guys on the water have to say. But just preparing yourself when you're not on the water helps you when you do step in the boat and go to catch a few fish. So,
Not only are you in second in the Angler of the Year going into the final two events, which are back-to-back events, you go Champlain and then Thousand Islands, right?
yeah.
And at Thousand Islands, like everything's in play, lake, river, the whole 9 yards. Like it's going to be a slugfest, especially after we've seen 2 years in a row now that the Century Belt's been broke. I think there were 3 or 4 last year, and then Shakur broke it the year before. Not a secret fishery to anyone by any means, but are you a points watcher? Like, are you on Bassmaster.com, like looking at the progressive Bassmaster Angler of the Year standings on a daily basis?
I am. It's really because I fish the opens for it seems like 15 years and every point matters. So, but no, I do keep up with the points. I blame that because I fish the opens, but yeah, I do watch that.
Well, PTSD from that.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
I say that because you're in sixth. You're 42 points out. Now, we'll ignore the fact that you're kind of sandwiched between the two Johnston brothers, who are going to be absolute beasts up there. But I mean, dude, you're in the midst of an Angler of the Year type season. And just kind of talk about your year and how you found yourself in that position so far. 2 good tournaments, and who knows what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start by saying this. It's like, uh, I've already made the classic.
Yep.
I think I can finish near the last and make the classic this year. So I'm gonna have a lot of freedom the next two tournaments. So definitely that is on my mind with just a chance to win Angler of the Year. So I want to just fish free. I fish the lake at St. Lawrence River. Just go about it freely. I don't have to worry about a point situation unless I knock out a real good tournament on Champlain. Then clearly it'd be on my mind. But um, man, this year has been awesome. I mean, I just the first tournament I had on Toledo Bend was the only one I really wish I had back. But man, it's been I couldn't ask for anything more. Few top tens, won a tournament. Things have just been for the past 2.5 years, maybe 3 years. It's been just clicking on the water for me, and yeah, grateful for it for sure. Because as you know, those little spurts of good tournaments, they're hard to come by and they don't last very long, unfortunately.
Talk about that win. What did that do? Did you have more sponsors that were knocking down your doors? Did that open any more opportunities? Was it merely the points in the financial game? But there's a lot of, it seems, you take into effect, you got $100,000 with the MPFLs. You've got open wins. You have televised invitations. You got BPT. You got Elite Series now. There's live coverage of all of it. It seems like there's 2 or 3 tournaments every week. Is it, in your opinion, a little bit harder to capitalize on a win, or is that Elite Series win, that blue trophy, still hold as much value as it did, say, 8-10 years ago?
I will say this: before I won that tournament, I thought if I can win one and have a good season, things are going to happen. Like things
Mhm.
were going to get easier. And I'll be the first to tell you where I'm at right now, and even in the opens, it's very hard to make a living, a decent living, bass fishing tournaments. With the tournament earnings and the sponsor dollar wise, both of it's really hard. But when I won that tournament, I expected to get a couple emails, maybe a couple text messages. I received zero sponsor inquiries after I won that tournament.
Really?
And not only that is actually was like, well, you know, let me try to send emails out while the flame is still burning. And very few got responded to. So things have not changed in that sense. But I think you're right with someone is winning a professional tournament almost every other weekend now. So I'm not saying the blue trophy doesn't mean more than some of the
Mhm.
others do, but someone's winning a professional tournament every couple weeks. So I mean, I don't think it means as much as it did 8 or 10 years ago. That's for sure. And even after I won that tournament, I've had a couple near top tens after that. Sitting good AOI standings, going into ICAST. Um, have a lot of meetings set up with people about working together for next year. And I mean, I think I get listened to a little more now than I did than the previous years. But as far as deals going through and doors opening, it's just not as easy as what I thought and other people think it might be.
Personally, on a personal level, though, you blow that
Mhm.
tournament out, you get your first win after being so close so
Yep.
many times. What did that mean to you and your family personally to get that win earlier, especially in Florida?
Yeah. I mean, as you know, it takes a lot of selfishness to
Mhm.
do what we do. Go out and fish tournaments, leave the family behind sometimes. So felt really good for me too, but I felt like I did my family a justice by sitting back watching me the past few years. So it really felt good for me to do it to them, and of course the people that support me. Um, but as far as just on the water, that was one of the first tournaments. It was one of the only tournaments where I took a big risk and not chasing points. I was like, I'm gonna go after big fish and try to win this tournament, and it paid off. So there's been a few tournaments since then where I've taken a gamble that if I had not had that happen, I probably wouldn't have done, and I'll probably continue to do that in my future. Is to take a chance to try to win a tournament. So that helped me out with my confidence a lot and decision making for these tournaments.
I think that's kind of the same thing that happened to Hamner after he won the classic. He's leading angler of the year now, but he kind of talked a little bit about that in the past on how he didn't understand what it was like before that, kind of freeing him up not only financially but just on the water to make those decisions, having been there and done that. And amazing how things kind of fall into place when you
Mhm.
don't have that pressure that you don't even realize is there in the back of your mind.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes it's not, but it almost takes a different mindset to say like, hey, I want to cut it. And there's going to be those tournaments where you're just
Mhm.
fighting for a check, you're fighting to do that, but it's a different mindset and to let me fish hard to cut a check versus let me fish hard to win this tournament. Let me try to fish for 4 pound bites instead of 2.5 pound bites. So you can't do that if you're not free and if you feel comfortable with it and if you're okay with not doing that and potentially bombing a tournament. Um, but you got to do it. You got to have some smart stuff. You got to go about it in a smart way because you hear people say, I swung
You'll
for the fence
swing
today.
for the fence.
I swung for the fence and caught 112 incher. I was trying to win. I mean, you got to get some bites along the way, but it's about picking the trolling motor up and leaving a pattern, produces 2 pound bites and fish for something else, risking your 8 hour day to fish for 7 to 8 bites.
One more question about the win, and then we'll
Yep.
we'll move on to some more kind of tactic pattern stuff. But what is it like going out with a 7-8 pound lead on the final day? I would imagine that would come with its own level of stress that not many other people can relate to, just because it's a weird position to be in. Not many guys have been in that position.
Yeah. I was feeling it
You
for
were?
sure. I was feeling it. And there was a shad spawn going on each morning, and where I don't know why I got into that right off the bat, but yeah, I was feeling it going on the blast off, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do first thing in the morning because my primary area. I mean, I don't know what it looked like on live or Bass Track or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but it was extremely hard for me to get bites where I caught all those big fish at. I mean, really hard to get bites, and I was losing like 50% of those bites I had. So it wasn't like I was going to go there and catch a limit. That was up in the air. Like there's a very good chance I wouldn't. And going out that morning, I was really mixed emotion about what I want to do because I felt like that first hour was so important because there was a shad spawn going on. And I stopped halfway between there and the place I ended up catching most of my fish and had just a stellar morning. And, you hear when it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly a, that's exactly what it was. I was running down the lakes. It was slick calm, and the one other place I was fishing in Dora had just a 50-yard stretch of ripple on it. It was the
Mm.
only place in Harris, Eustis, and Dora that had any wind, and there was just a little breeze coming through a pinch point, and it was blowing right on top of those fish where I stopped and caught, a good limit in like 10 minutes, and then the wind quit blowing, didn't get another bite there. Um, and then went to my primary area, and almost all my fish were gone. I only caught 2 fish there in 5 hours. So it was definitely stressful, but it was like, you know, like you hear, it was just my time.
And were
So,
you planning on stopping there, or you stopped there because of the ripple?
so it was in my mind to start there, Matt, but it was not going to be a for sure deal
Yeah.
because there was a lot of other shad spawn stuff around hay grass and shaded banks, and that I was going
Mm-hmm.
fishing that area,
Yeah.
and I knew there were some fish on that shell bed, but they're like I said, I couldn't hardly make a bite because it's been slick calm for 4 days. But then when I saw that ripple there, I was like, well, let me see if that ripple is over that shell bar. And I went to it and it was literally right over the top of that shell
Oh,
bar. So
that's
I was like,
wild.
I need to
So
fish
that's
here.
one of
Yeah.
those good decisions that, if you're trying to force things, if you have something in your mind of what you're going to do, you're not fishing free, you're not open-minded, you're not at the top of your game, you could have blown right past that. And then the rest of the day could have been an absolute struggle. In hindsight,
Yeah.
it seemed easy, but I mean, that one decision is kind of what catapulted you to be able to like kind of enjoy the afternoon victory lap, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I almost didn't stop. I probably wasn't going to fish there if I didn't see that ripple.
Yeah.
And I was like, let me take advantage of that ripple being there. And it just one thing goes off on your mind, you roll with it. Like you said, being free, open minded. Um, listening to, and I've said this a lot this year. If you have something inside of you or a voice in your head saying you need to try something else, you need to listen to that voice, because if you're doing the right thing, there's normally not another voice clicking. There's not a second thought going on. So
Mhm.
that's been something that I've taken into consideration every single day on the water for the past couple of years. Is in, if I'm doing something and says, "Hey, dude, you need to try something else," instead of fighting that urge, I just pick my trolling motor up and I go do it. So, um, just being free about it and not being hard headed and stubborn is a big key.
John, just not from yeah. What if you have, say, like 4 or 5 voices all at once, and then there's still like 4 or 5 voices when you stop at the next spot?
You got
Just
you gotta
asking for, I'm asking for a friend. You know what I mean? Not just
you, you just gotta take a deep breath and just the first. It's not, it's the first thought, Matt. It's
okay.
the first thought that pops in your head is usually the one I go try.
Okay.
If you got 4 or 5 voices, knock one out, go to the next one.
Oh my gosh. All right. We're gonna take a break. We're talking with Elite Series rookie John Garrett. When we come back, one of the things that I feel like you're known for is shell beds. Like, you understand shell beds and you understand subtle current and how it positions fish. Fair assessment?
Fair assessment, I believe so. Yep.
I want to take a break. When we come back, we're going to dive into a little in-depth tactics, because you seem to have been able to always be in the right areas of the lake and fish your strengths, even on fisheries that don't necessarily fit the TVA kind of style that you're the most familiar with. So it's a live show, BTL. Today's Wednesday, right?
It is Wednesday.
Yeah,
Yes,
Wednesday, last week of July, with John Garrett. We will be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top on Strike King.
Gear that just plain works. Cast after cast after cast. AFTCO. Any fish, any water.
Gamakatsu, the innovation leader in fish hooks, is launching Nano Alpha technology in 2024. Nano Alpha is a new finish available on Gamakatsu's most popular hook styles. It delivers 2 times slicker performance, 4 times better corrosion resistance. Nano Alpha technology makes the world's greatest fish hooks even better in 2024 to help anglers catch more fish.
Born in Japan, using technology, innovation, and precision, Sunline produces the widest selection of fishing lines at the most technologically advanced line factory in the world. Manufactured at the strictest tolerances to produce victories at the highest levels of tournament bass fishing. From household names like Christie, Swindle, and Cruz, to young guns like Cook, Logan, New, and Welcher, they all trust Sunline to take them to the top of the leaderboard. Choose the line that will give you the strength to guarantee your confidence. Sunline.
Your early morning mentality is your every hour mentality. All gas, no brakes. Focus, purpose, power. Destined for the water, but confident everywhere else. A calming buzz before the storm, the truth of nature itself. You can't catch lightning in a bottle. There's a limit out there, but it's not with your gear. Unrelenting power delivery. Unparalleled weight savings. Keeping you on the water, whether you run a 9.9 or outscoping your best 5. In this rare air, there's power in the silence. It's a mindset, thinking only of the things that matter and freeing your mind from the things that you trust.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
All right, welcome back. BTL on a Wednesday, talking with John Garrett. We're going to go dive deep into a little techniques, tips, tactics, do a little learning here. So one of the things that I've struggled with, John, over the last 4 or 5 years in the opens is the kind of current driven fisheries and the shell bar deal. It's very obvious if you grow up with it, the guys who get it, just like, I feel very comfortable going to an Ozark lake and reading different types of rock. But it seems very important because those are typically fisheries where if you're on them, you're catching 4 or 5 pounders and you can get right in a hurry. And if you miss that bite, not to be crude, you're screwed. and you have had a lot of success on rivers and current driven fisheries, Sabine River, Arkansas River, Pickwick, Eufaula in Alabama, Watts Bar, Wheeler Lake, all of those. Fair to say that one of your strong suits is reading current and dissecting where the biggest and feeding population of fish are on those fisheries?
I would say so. It's more so the Tennessee River, but I do understand the tidal fisheries and places like James Arkansas River too, just because of how it positions the fish. Yeah.
Is that a time on the water thing? Was there guys that you spent in the boat with that really showed you how that worked, or what was your process to becoming comfortable with moving water and how it positions fish?
Yeah. So, basically the only reason is I live, right down the road from Kentucky Lake, and that's where I grew up fishing. My granddad took me, that's just where I grew up from a kid. So I spent more than enough time on bodies of water, especially Kentucky Lake and Pickwick, that are just current fed lakes. So Kentucky Lake is basically the trash can of the Tennessee River. It gets every ounce of water dumped through the entire system into Kentucky Lake. So we have unreal, just unbelievable amounts of current through the winter and spring months, like 250, 300,000, currents in the spring, and then all through the summer too when we have rain. So I spend enough time out there to understand the offshore part of it, and also the onshore, the bank line stuff, because we have currents that are so strong a lot of times you have to fish the shoreline. So just time on the water, really.
And then the shell bed aspect of that, if it seems like you're a big shell bed guy, and you'll find those even on fisheries. You can take Florida into account on that. Would you say that shell bed fishing across the country is a lot sneakier than people give it credit for, and they exist on a lot more fisheries than the average angler realizes?
Yeah, absolutely. I, I'm gonna throw Toledo Bend and Rayburn. I mean, there's so many places that don't have good current that have really good shell beds, um, and you know, one of the biggest keys to the shell bed, the reason why big fish live on them,
Yeah.
is because especially after the spawn, is the biggest bait fish in the lake, gizzard shad. They basically live on hard bottom and shell. They eat off the algae, the plankton, all the stuff that the shell bed puts off. That's what big gizzard shad eat. And, the biggest bass in the lake is going to be around the best bait fish typically. Um, and another thing with gizzard shad and all, thread fins, all types of bait fish, they need high levels of oxygen. Shad is a very fickle fish. They're going to live in the best water possible. Um, and shell beds are going to be right there with it, really high oxygenated places and bait fish. That's the whole key. So if you can be around best water quality, the best bait in the lake, and some type of cover, that's some, shell beds are some of the only pieces of cover that could provide that. So
And then the ability to find them comes down to understanding your side imaging primarily and what you're looking for, because to me a shell bed is a little bit similar to a cane pile in the Carolinas, where you can go past a lot of them and not realize what you're looking like unless you have the right settings and know what you're looking for.
yeah, exactly. And then, you know, they definitely show up on side imaging, but you know, as the years go by, almost the entire Tennessee River is becoming harder and harder and harder bottom. The more current we have, the less saturation, the less soft bottom we have. There's no mussel divers compared to what it was when I was a kid growing up. Like a lot of times when I was a kid, you couldn't fish some of the best shell beds because there was a boat anchored out with a red flag sticking up. Now you never see that. So there's
I've
no
seen
mussel
that on
divers.
Pickwick.
Yep. Yep. So if you see a red flag on a boat, you're not supposed to get within 50 yards of it because there's a
And
mussel diver there.
okay, so this is elementary questions. I'm from Oklahoma. I grew up in Illinois. I'm asking these questions. You can send dumb questions to Matt at basszone.com. You're wasting our time, but I'm asking these questions. So those mussels, when you see that up, are they like going to restaurants, or what are they doing it for the shell? What are they actually harvesting down there? Like, are we eating like clams from Pickwick when we go to like Wenzel's Oyster House on Gunnersville?
And it's another reason why it's not as big now is it's a lot of it is jewelry, almost specifically jewelry. Yep. So necklaces, bracelets, that kind of stuff. That's where a lot of that stuff is gone to.
So like the actual shell, they'll polish it down to the shiny part of it, or they're looking
Yes.
for pearls.
Yeah, sometimes you'll get a pearl out of one, but most of the time it's just a shell. And a lot of times these shells they're bought at local, commercial fishing, we'll say residents, and kind of where they all come together and sell this stuff. And a lot of that stuff gets shipped overseas. So most of all the mussels are sold for jewelry.
And you got a guy down there with like a hatchet that's just hacking off chunks of it and then bringing it up and tossing it in his boat and then going home and finishing it.
Yeah. Well, so it's just kind of like if you picture a guy scuba diving with the potato sacks scooping up
Yeah.
shells, very similar. So what they'll do is they'll go down and they'll pick the biggest, juiciest alive mussel and just keep throwing it in a potato sack until their sack gets full. They swim up, dump it in the boat, and go back down.
So are there shell beds that are alive and shell beds that are dead?
Yes, yeah. There is all the above. So you know, and the live shells, they kind of they'll get moved around. The dead shells will get blown around by current. That's another part of the whole Tennessee River becoming a massive hard bottom shell bed. I mean, everything is becoming that way. But for say you have a high lake, water's up a little bit in the spring, there's not a lot of current flow. Most of your live shell beds are mostly on top of high spots. So on your high spots on the main river channel, secondary, your live shell beds are the highest places, the shallowest places on the river. And as you get into the summer months, after the spawn, those shells will, it's weird, they almost move to where the current hits because they need a lot of oxygen to keep alive. So a lot of the fronts, let me get my hand to count, front sides of breaks, the front sides of humps, really subtle changes that the shells make the change a lot of times if you're on some flat ground. And then as you transition into the fall, where you have the almost entire Tennessee River dropping, the very tops of the shallow spots are getting exposed. So the shells tend to slide off into the depressions, the lower spots. And then, what you have exposed from the water drop is your dead shells. I mean, the live shells will basically force the dead shells out of an area. Sorry, we got a cranky baby back
Oh
here.
no, you're all good.
But and in the wintertime, you have a lot of current picking up, and as well through the spring, they're on the backside of high spots. They're almost protected. Mainly the current forces them back there, and the current also forces the dead shells back there. But the dead shells are open, so they pick up and move just by the current wash them away. So finding live shell beds makes a big difference on if you're fishing the right ones or not, and just understanding the yearly cycle of those. When you pull up to a high spot, most of the time there's a shell bed somewhere on it, depending on the time of year. But just depending on the time of year is where you focus front side, back side, on top of it, down the slope. That's when you focus on those areas, is just the time of the year.
I feel like this is really good stuff. I mean, if I ask a question, you don't want to give up the juice. You don't have to, but I'm going to keep
Ask
going.
it away.
Okay. So,
Ask it away.
Okay. So the open on, in, Alabama on Eufaula, right?
Yeah.
Suckfest for me. I did the ledge thing. I couldn't figure it. I lucked out. I finished like 43rd in that. I found 2 shell beds that were like 30 yards apart, and I caught every single fish off of them. And I sat there for 7 hours a day. I had like 17, almost 18 one day and like 14 the other day, the day that I found it. Now, that being said, in the era of forward facing sonar, I knew I was on a shell bed because it was sticky and because it was shallow. And I was like, I think this is a shell bed. And I caught a couple shells. I never saw a fish on forward facing sonar. I would cast out. I would be working. 3-4 pounders. Donk. I'm like, where the heck did that fish come from? Is that typical of shell beds to make it's very difficult to see the actual bass on the shell bed?
On forward facing, I want to say the really good ones, they're almost impossible to see.
Really?
On forward facing. Now, you might see a couple little ants crawling around the bottom on forward facing. Don't get me wrong, but they're really hard to see. A lot of times the shell beds are shallow, and you just can't
Like
see
6
that well.
foot.
That
I was in
shallow.
like 6 foot.
Yeah, it makes it hard to see. And then when you get such hard bottom returns on any graph, it gets hard to see. So a lot of times the only way you can find them is just pulling up and making a few casts and seeing if they're there. Now, if you get in that deeper than 8 foot range, you could see them on your side imaging. And if you get deeper, then yeah, you could see them on forward facing sometimes, but they're really difficult to see a lot of times, especially if they're good ones, because the ones that are good, they don't get messed with. They're sitting on the bottom, and most of the time they bite when you throw over them. But a lot of times the ones that get beat up, sometimes you get some fish floating, and you can see them relatively easy.
Fantastic. Top 3 shell bed baits.
Crankbait's number 1 for me. Carolina rig, probably number 2. Oh man, this third one's gonna be hard. I don't know, jig or worm, one of the two. One good moving bait, one good crankbait, and a couple dragon baits to follow up. So
that's fair. I'll never forget. I found one on Kentucky Lake in a Toyota in 2019, and I rolled a Alabama rig over it. and I said, get the net. I said, this is a 5-pound smallmouth. And it was a shell that big, and it had 2 of the wires. I mean, it ate 2 of the wires. Like, it destroyed my $30. Like, I could not get it back. I had to like crack the shell open to get it back. And I was like, I had no clue that those shells were that aggressive. Like, I mean, it went, I was like, oh, I'm taking the donk. And then, you know, that shell's rolling around. I'm like, oh, dude, it's a good one. It's not coming up. And he netted about a 2-pound shell for me.
Yeah.
Or mussel. They'll eat it. Like, they're aggressive, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah. If they're a little bit open and your line or something comes through there, they'll definitely clamp down on it, no doubt.
That's wild. What percent of Elite Series guys or Opens guys do you think fully understand shellbed fishing? Or is that a lost art or an art that's not talked about as much?
I'll say this. There's a decent percent that understand it. And, you know, a lot of people do understand it, but it takes so like, I'm pretty good at it, and it takes so much dedication to find that one spot. So it's like a lot of people, it's not that they don't understand it, it's that they try it for 4 or 5 hours, don't find anything, and give up on it. And it's a really scary deal because I could be 1 full day, 2 full days into practice and not find a single spot. But man, when you find a spot, it makes your tournament. You know, so it's not that a lot of people don't understand it, is they just give up on it. They just kind of quit looking for it. So
I know there's a lot of sneaky lakes that have them. I hear guys that are like, oh yeah, I got shell beds on X lake. And you're like, what? And they're like, oh yeah, like they're always there. And you're like, I would never have guessed that. But I mean, there has to be some kind of current for a shell bed though. Like some sort of moving water definitely is a plus for it. Like there's no stagnant lakes that have them, right?
No, there's very few. There's very few. I mean, even the Harris chain has some moving water. I mean, there needs to be some kind of moving water just to keep the saturation and filter the water, because shells will get silted over. Because they get there and they die, and mud gets on top of them, or grass grows on them, whatever that might be. But yeah, there needs to be some type of water flow. 95% of the time, I'm going to say.
I'm on your website here. John Garrett Outdoors. Do you still do?
Oh,
is that old? Is that old now?
That's old. I haven't thought about that in a little while, but go ahead.
Oh, well, I was on it. But are you still doing the guiding, like all sorts of different guiding for both the fishing and the on the water instructions, and then the hunting and all that too, to supplement the pro fishing thing?
Yeah, I do some just electronic training. Not so much as fishing trips, but let me go out, show you a shell bed. Let me show you a stump. Let me show you how to use your forward facing, that kind of stuff. And I still do the duck hunt stuff as well in the winter.
So you're one of the guys, do you put up the fishing stuff in the winter to hunt, or do you still fish and hunt?
No, I don't fish hardly at all. Come mid-November, like let's say this past year, I did not fish from Harris Chain. I didn't fish one time from the Harris Chain Open until Toledo Bend, the first Elite Series tournament.
Really? I feel like that's a dying breed. I feel like you talk about like Trey and JT and these guys that are out there, Kyle Patrick and them, like, dude, they're like 30 days a month, 12 months out of the year. If you're not talking to them about fishing, they feel like it's a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, during that fall time, man, I'm like, sell my boat, put my rods up. I need a breather from it.
It's old school,
man, especially fishing the opens, and like, it's just, man, it just can wear you down. It really can. And especially, in the part of the country, the Southeast, I mean, there's a lot of fishing pressure on the lakes, and it's not easy to go out there and just have a real good day of fishing, to be honest with you. I mean, no matter where you go, you can go out, catch a few fish, but I just sometimes need a breather from it. And that's what I do in the fall. Put the rods up, pull the gun out of the gun lock, and go hunt for a few months.
A couple more questions, and I'll let you bounce. I know you got a lot to do to get ready, but you are, in my opinion, a hybrid angler. You're not scared of the new school stuff, but you still have a lot of old school in you. The pre-forward facing sonar, You still always seem to have a lot of bait casters on your front deck. You haven't completely transitioned to it. Is that a fair assessment as to how you would describe yourself as a hybrid of old school and new school?
Yeah, I'd say that's fairly accurate. I didn't even see a forward facing until I was in college. So, I mean, I had all those years of fishing experience,
Mm-hmm.
even halfway through college before I even seen a forward facing. Cody Huff brought one to Bethel like my junior or senior year. And I was like, dude, that thing is only good for crappie fishing. And then he wins like the next 4 college tournaments we have on it. And I'm like, will you take me fishing? So I I have not dropped the things that I learned as a kid growing up about offshore fishing, side imaging, that kind of stuff. Um, but what I've done is I've just taken what I learned growing up and just applied my forward facing to it,
Mm-hmm.
Making more accurate casts. And I mean, of course, when we go to Smith Lake or Murray, you
Yeah.
got to dedicate your tournament to it. But no, it's just I have a really good mix of let me do my deal during practice, let me scan for 3 days, and then fish what I found, but just use my forward facing just to be, have a high percentage of casts where the fish are. I'm just, I'm losing my word here, but
Yeah, no, that makes
um,
sense.
yeah, just being more precise on the water. So
Yeah. A couple questions here. I don't know if you asked John what he was using to hook his Nico rig tool at Wheeler. What was that? Does that make sense?
yeah, I don't know why that was such a big craze. It was a out of all the fish catches that I've had this year, that Nico tool got the most questions. That is called a Nico hack.
I know what
There's a
you're talking about.
there's a couple brands that make one similar. It's just a piece of plastic gets pushed up um, through your worm. You don't have that O-ring that your hook's through, but they're called Nico hacks, is what that is.
Here, I'll pull it up right here for those who don't know what. There it is, right
Yep,
there.
that's it right
So,
there. Yep.
so this part you push this through your worm, then the sharp part goes out the other side. Then you break off the other side and the sharp, and then your hook goes right through that. So there's no way that you can throw your bait.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
This thing has been around for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, that got a lot of craze. I'm not too sure why. So Jake Latondras, the camera guy, asked me what I caught that fish on, and all I had left was that piece of plastic. So I held my hook up and I was like, this piece of plastic is the juice. That's what I've been catching them on. Just
I
trying to
got
make
you.
a joke.
Yeah.
And now everybody was wondering what they were.
I would say 70% of serious Nico wacky worm guys use that. Like it's not new. It's just it's an accessory that makes life easier.
Yeah, it does. And sometimes I use that, sometimes I use O-ring, but no, it's pretty commonly used. Yeah.
Clay says Taco uses something like that. Have you ever gotten a peek at what the hell he actually uses? Those guys use some weird stuff.
I'll tell you what, they do not use what is on Bassmaster.com at the end of the tournament. No, there ain't no way.
Now, here's the thing. I've talked to a number of you guys, and you all say the same thing. And here's what I've had 3 anglers that have said this. He promised me he'd show me, but at the time he was putting his rods up, so I didn't see it. So no one has actually seen what Koya and Takumi and those guys are using. But every once in a while, you'll get like that cast where you're like, boy, that looks like nothing that I have ever seen offered to a bass before.
Yeah. No, they don't have many rods on deck at blast off or weigh in or anything like that. They keep it secret, and I feel like they really want to push a few things on us as a joke, hairy dice or whatever it is, but I'm not buying that's what they're using. So I can't say for sure if that's what they're using or not, but I'm not buying it.
I think a lot like the Japanese seem to be big on profile and function and not what it looks like to us. Would you agree with that? Like the profile, like a lot of especially when you get into those weird bait fish shapes, the bluegill shapes, the size of the bait more so than like if it looks pretty or not.
I completely agree with that. No doubt.
Which is hard because, I mean, you're used to, especially with like striking, everything is so beautiful in the water with like the rage tail stuff. And like everything is always flowing and perfect and straight. And it'll be interesting to see. Are you interested to see where it goes in the next 4 to 5 years as far as baits and rigging style? I think we're in for a lot of new stuff that can't even comprehend.
I think what we're going to see is the Japanese. We're going to be identical to the Japanese market, just a couple years behind. I think you're going to see, we're going to see hooks, different weights, jig heads, and plastics come out. That's where we're going. It's going to be different for sure. I mean, you're still going to be able to catch one on a crankbait or whatnot, but as far as what we're going to see at ICAST the next few years, it's majority plastics, I'm going to say.
I'll show this. So I've been on this. So Sego, who is, one of the best in the business, he's been doing it forever. Really top-notch photographer from Japan. He would always have this in the media trailer, and this is the Basser magazine, the monthly bass fishing. And you want to look through, I mean, even 10 years ago, we'd look through it and be like, okay. And now it's like standard issue. So, I mean, you guys want to dig around and look at some of the stuff that's coming down the pipeline. Like you said, I agree. Everything that's in that magazine now, it's going to be, it's going to be standard. The one thing that I'm curious if you've caught them on that took off, but then never really took off was that heavy turd stuff, the poop thing. Like that seemed like it gained a little bit of momentum, but then it stalled. Is that still being used? Have you ever caught them on that?
I've never caught them on it, mainly just because I've never thrown it. But there's a couple of guys that I know, the Fish Opens and the NPFL and the Elites, that they got on it and they still use it. So I think it's the people that use it. It's a very small percent of the people that use it, but they still do. I think a lot of people bought in on it, and then kind of like me, I got a couple of bags out there, but I've never thrown it. So
it's so hard to figure out like what to throw and what not to throw. And then for the majority of the guys, I mean, this is why it works. You want to talk about the value of professional anglers. It's still the professional tournament trails that drive these sales, because all these baits are one tournament away from being impossible to get. And we're seeing that now with a couple of the different minnows and a couple of the different plastics and some of the jig heads. So you could say, everyone's watching the YouTube stuff, but that is still driven by Elite Series, BPT, and top tournament results. And, guys like you who are out there slinging the stuff around.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always been a part of that class. Is what did Kevin Van Dam win the last tournament on Kentucky Lake on? What, who's throwing what minnow? It's like, you want to know what the best guys are throwing. It might not always be the best bait, but since someone won a tournament on it, you feel like it's the best bait for sure.
Yep, definitely. Anything else you want to get in here, John, before I let you go? I've learned a lot from this show. I think you're long overdue for a BTL appearance. So
I think I'm about talked out on this today.
Yeah,
so,
that'll work. Well, drive safe. I know you're headed up north, and you have the good thing about headed up north is like every day of practice and every day of the tournament, regardless of how it turns out, you're going to be freaking reeling in fish a lot of the time, which is a great feeling.
Looking forward to that and not sweating and being around more bass for sure. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right, dude. I'm going to let you go. Thank you, man.
Yep. Appreciate it, Matt.
All right, later. There you go, John Garrett. We're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, wrap things up for the week. We are actually going to go live tonight. Frank Scalish live, 5 p.m. We're going to take viewer questions, listener questions. We're actually going to put a link there if you want to jump on and ask Frank a question. Andy's going to unveil his new custom colored limited edition Run of 600 bait of the month. It's BTL on a Wednesday. We'll be back right after this.
In 2023, we became a household name in the crappie fishing world thanks to Power Breaks, the game changer. Hey, bass fishing world, buckle up, because you're next. It's going to be fun. Welcome to the next evolution of our product line, Power Brakes Sidekick, designed to install right on your shallow water acres. We are the first and only fishing brake company to offer a breakaway system. Just like with the Game Changer, the Power Brakes Sidekick has it as well. And it's not a matter of if you're going to need it, it's when. Power Brakes, the most durable fishing brakes available on the market today. Made right here in the USA with our rock-solid 2-year warranty. Hey, not all fishing brakes are built equally, and you owe it to yourself to find out why ours are different. Power Brakes Sidekick. Order yours today at mypowerbrakes.com. You'll be glad you did.
Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronics setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com. All right, wrapping up the regular week. Like I said, tonight BTL will be live 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. That is on July 31st. And then recorded shows next week, 4 shows next week, kicking things off with Alec Morrison, Skeet Reese, Justin Lucas, and then a bonus guest that I'm recording later today. But good stuff with John Garrett, guy who definitely understands, has been around, even though he's an Elite Series rookie, has been around this game for a long time. At 28 years of age, it feels like all I'm doing now is interviewing guys who have had vaunted college careers and junior careers that are now dominating at the top level. But second in the Rookie of the Year, 6th in the Angler of the Year, heading into the last 2 Elite Series stops back to back. But that's all we got for today. Tonight, 5 p.m. Frank Scalish will be live. Other than that, I'm headed out for the week, but a full week of shows next week. Thanks everybody for the interaction. Thanks to all the guests. It's really been hard, not hard, but it's been difficult with as many moving pieces. Like guys like to go up north for a week early. Guys are getting done with tournaments, and everyone has just been awesome as far as making time to record with BTL. So greatly appreciated that, and all of our listener and viewer feedback. So we'll talk to everybody later. See ya.